Hi, everybody. It's VA to VA Mastermind Live. I know it's been a couple months, so we're excited to see you and hope you brought some questions today. Or even if you're watching the replay afterwards, please feel free to send us questions in our group messaging on Facebook. It's VA to VA Mastermind Live. Just look us up and join. Or anytime you can send it to info@va2vamastermindlive.com. So any questions you have. I'm Tammy Durden with Tammy's Office Solutions and Fearless Boss Babes. And with me, my counterpart today is Nanette Telemack. Nanette, please introduce yourself.
Thought I did. Okay. Hi, I'm Nanette Telemack with Innocence Virtual Assistants out of New Hampshire. And I'm a generalist, so I offer sales, marketing, and administrative assistance to small businesses and professionals. So real estate and small businesses, so far technology companies, basically, as well as professionals who are consultants. So we offer everything from web design to sales, prospecting, to administrative tasks. So that's me.
Awesome. And then Lisa Kolb, who's usually with us, is with her family at the moment and couldn't join us. So we'll miss her today, but know that she's usually with us as well. And she's with Augusta Virtual Assistants down in Georgia. So we're excited today to bring to you a new topic. We've talked about it kind of on the edges before, I think, Nanette, but we're going to talk a little bit more in depth and bring you through the processes of some of the processes and systems we use to help onboard new team members. That's always, especially if you're just starting to build teams, it can be a little tricky to find your way and to make sure you do the things necessary to have a successful team. So we wanted to just talk about, the processes there. First of all, we're going to be interviewing and bringing them on. We don't hire because we're talking about subcontracting and contracted 1099 according to U.S. government rules. So you definitely want to be careful of the language you use with your contractors. You don't want to use language like training or let's see, what else? What is some other language, Nanette, that we don't use with subcontractors?
Well, definitely not training, but I think being careful, maybe not so much terminology, but although that's important, but not calling them employees, but or remote staff, because they're not, they're their own freelance businesses. So, and I think you have to be careful in terms of how you treat them. You can't determine when they're going to be working. You can tell them when the job needs to be done, or if it's a customer service and you need them during the day, well, that's the nature of the project. And that's okay, but you can't say, I want you working full-time for me 9 to 5 or something like that, because then that becomes more of an employee.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. A great way to put that. And then, so, you want to go through the interview, making sure they understand all of those things. Your contract in place with the same terminology, making sure they understand and fill out the forms for the 1099 that you're going to have to fill out, because anything over $400 that they make, you will have to send them a 1099 for that year before the end of January. So make sure you do that with any of your subcontractors and get that done in time, because you want to stay within the legal realms for the IRS as well. So after the interview and you found the perfect team member and you're excited and they're going to join you, and maybe it's your first or second or fifth, who knows, but just some helpful tips we want to give you today and talk about some things that might make it easier for you. First of all, I think systems, the systems that we use is a huge help in today's technological world, if I can get that out. But so, just even things like YouTube and Zoom and some of the other video, Skype, and all the video type technology that we have today is huge. So you can onboard just even using that type of technology. There's also technology that you can use that videos your screen. One that I use is Vidyard, and it's very easy and it's free, and you just click it, and then you can do, you can do, like, you can walk them through, say, the form, the W-9 for their, to fill out, let's say, if they're having trouble with it, and point out different things on there. Or if there's a system related to the project they're working on, and you just want to make sure, they're completely on board with the way the client does it. You can use those technologies as well. And of course, project management is a huge one, and we talk about that a lot. But it can't be said enough, because within project management systems, often your clients, you can be successful or unsuccessful with them, because communication is key. What are some other systems that you think about in that when we talk about technology and onboarding?
I'm trying to think if there's more. Definitely, your a time tracker. That could be part of the project management, but sometimes it isn't. I know I use Harvest, which is outside of the project management system that I'm using. I like it, simple, and you can invoice. So that's something that you could have, and then they could check. Your team members could get in and time their activities, as well as hit invoice and then send it, get it approved after it asks you that the administrator has to approve the time. And then once that's approved, they can just shoot off an invoice to you, because one thing they should do is invoice you, even though you're working with them on a regular basis as a team member. They should be invoicing you. So that's one. And I guess the other technology is just for communication apps, that help, WhatsApp or whatever that is, that allow you to quickly, get in contact with your team member when you have to. So having those in place would be good. Those are the two things I think of.
Absolutely, those are great. And I know I use FreshBooks, which many freelancers use, especially for service projects. And so in that one, I can invite them in to my system, and they keep time in their own, also in their own, they're set up too. And then they keep time within that. And then again, I invoice the client, they invoice me. And it's just a nice, clean system to use. And I think QuickBooks has come a long way, actually. They began introducing projects now just recently, within the last year or two. And so you can set up projects and timekeeping and subcontractors and things like that, even within the QuickBooks system now. So if you want to keep everything in one place, including your accounting, that's a good way to go as well, and just get a little bit of training on that if you need it. So those are all good systems, and I know there's tons of other systems out there. These are just a couple that we use and that we find very easy. Why make it harder or reinvent the wheel, right? So yeah, we definitely want to make it easier. So I guess some of the steps that we go through, or at least I know I go through when I'm bringing on a new team member, is after the contract's signed, I send them kind of a welcome packet with the contract and welcoming to the team, because I am excited. It becomes like a little family to us. And so within that is the contract, of course, the W-9, and how excited we are to have them. And then if they have any questions, I certainly want them to, get back to me. But then they sign it, send it back in, and I, make sure to sign it as well and send them a copy. Now, signatures are big too now. So digital signatures are huge. Used to be you would print it or type your name, and that was considered a digital signature, but no longer, and that's not legally binding, everybody, if you're still doing that. You definitely want to use some apps or some programs for that as well. If you don't have any, say within Adobe PDF, or like I use the Foxit PDF Phantom program, which is awesome and has the signature ability. Then you definitely want to send it through something like HelloSign. And that's usually free for at least, I think, 1 to 3. I can't remember. It's changed over the years. And they also have HelloFax if you don't have a fax machine and need it. But HelloSign is awesome because you can just upload the document, send it through to them, they sign it, comes back to you, you sign it, and everybody gets a copy of it electronically for your records. And do you know of any others, Nanette, that might help in that? I can't think of any others right off the top of my head, but I know there are some others that people use for signatures and documentation.
I guess it does. Right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That has a signing thing. That's the only one I could think of. But yeah,
Right.
I'm sure there's that.
Right. And then you want to keep documents too safe. So, either externally or uploading to cloud where they're going to be kept safe and secure. And also where hopefully not hackable. But, you have to be very careful about that. Dropbox is a good one to use. I use also Google Docs. It just depends on what you're storing. Be careful not to store any passwords or credit cards within Google Docs. They will kick you out. They do not like you having any kind of credit card, especially info. They don't want to be responsible for that. So make sure you don't keep any info like that in there. If you have clients that need that, use LastPass or some other system that is secure to hide that information from anybody that might get on. So, and that brings up another great thing is the security of your documents and handling of your team, because when they fill out that W-9, it has their social security number on it. So what do you recommend in that?
Yeah, that's a hard one. I think there's like software that encrypts and stuff, but I think I would probably take that offline to keep, probably on my external drive, keep it there, and that's where I keep all my personal documents of that nature on there. So I only plug it in when I'm downloading or transferring information, and you should have a virus and firewall software when you do things like that. So, or you can take yourself off the internet while you do that. This could be on your computers, but then you transfer it to your external drive. I think everybody should have an external drive. It's even the cloud isn't safe totally. If somebody can hack in, they're going to hack in. And with the Internet of Everything, that's the big concern that everybody's talking about. How somebody can hack Alexis and hack, all these artificial intelligence systems. So just a hard, without any internet access, is probably the safest bet. It's better than paper. To me, I hate paper.
True, very true. And I think you give some great tips for security because in today's world, we just don't know. And as much as we'd like to have confidence in all the cloud systems out there, if governments can hack into all the systems they've done already, nothing's safe. And we want to protect our team members as best as possible. I even, and same with clients, delete email and everything related to it. So, they're sending it back usually within email. And if we don't delete that, it's still on your system, and email, it can be hacked very easily. So, you've got to be careful of that kind of thing that you're storing even. And most people don't think about that. They just think about storing the document they download. So definitely keep that in mind as well. So anyway, so what other types of things then do you do, Nanette, when you're onboarding? I don't want to hog up the whole conversation here. So
what a good idea is having a checklist of the process that someone's coming in to make sure that everything's done and everything's submitted to get through. And then the second thing is making sure you have a clear task, what they'll be doing. This is the project or the task, and this is what you'll be doing. These are all the steps you need, and then see if it's a software the client's using that they're not familiar with. Then you arrange maybe to get them up to speed on it so that they can, you know. But I think after you get all that paperwork set aside and you have your checklist and you understand the tasks and what's going to be, and that, I think the second thing is to get them in touch, get them familiar with just the culture of your company, you know, how you work, how you correspond with each other, what other teammates they may be contacting and getting to know, maybe having a virtual meeting of other teammates so they could feel like they're part of your company, you know. So now you want to.
You'd be surprised. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
didn't mean to cut in. You'd be surprised how great that is.
yeah.
I had started doing some virtual team meetings, mostly just with the social media group. And they love it. We even did lunch one day and just to talk, you know, it wasn't even about business, but just because, you know, we're all virtual, usually alone or with kids. And it's nice to have the adult conversation when we're working all day on client things and take that break out just to get to know each other better in a personal way and work, you know, and it also creates a sense of bonding as well as loyalty to your company. And it's, you know, a great way to do things. And I love that you said about the checklist because I use OneNote. I love OneNote. And I know a lot of people don't use it anymore, but I love it. And they have check boxes you can actually stick right in. And I love to check things off. And all I do is click it and it's a check mark. So I actually have a system within my notes that's just for team members and for my system of onboarding team members. So that's a great point. I love that.
Yeah, and it just makes it easier. But this way you don't drop anything. You don't drop a ball. You know, it's you know that you've done everything that you need to do, and then and I guess the second thing is making sure that which we touched on is making sure that all your documents are in a safe place going forward. But that makes a big difference, I think, in terms of bringing someone on, and it helps, you know, because you feel kind of like in the air, you know, and unsure. And I would even maybe in the beginning have like weekly short, you know, touch base video or whatever, say how's things going, you know, do I have any questions, do I need to go over something again with you, so you know, because they're trying to get acclimated. So in the beginning it's always good to over communicate than to under communicate, because you know, even though we're all professionals and we know what we're doing, you're trying to get used to doing something somebody's way, you know, for the client. And so that, you know, you want to make sure that you're touching base with them and they feel comfortable that they're doing it right. Then once they're comfortable, you don't need to do it as often.
Absolutely. That's a great point. And then too, even doing a virtual introduction between the team member and the client, if they're going to have communication with your client, that's really important as well. And letting them communicate with one another, with you, of course, CC'd communication so that you're aware of what's going on. But my team is great at that and I love it. And my clients have gotten used to them and love them, you know, but I still meet with my clients monthly for strategy and different things. So I'm still involved, which they, you know, wanted. A lot of them will ask when I'm telling them they're going to be working with the team, well, why I wanted you kind of thing. But I, you know, I reassure them that I'm still here and they can always reach out to me and I communicate regularly with them, but then they fall in love with my team too. And it's really awesome to see that happen, you know, because they didn't expect that. So I love that when that happens, you know, because it's really neat and it gives them opportunity to learn more about our company, but also work with other people. One of the other things that I know I do also, well, at least for us, because with social media, we've become kind of a boutique digital marketing. So one of the things that, you know, one of the things that I find that is most time consuming, I guess, is getting them set up in all the systems. So I have to invite them to FreshBooks, to Write, because my project management system, to Social Pilot, which is a program I use for, for my clients. Digital marketing and things like that. So all of that has to be done and they have to make sure they received the invites, which often can go to spam or some other place. And you might even have to, I've had to get on the phone with FreshBooks with the team member and, things like that to try and get them set up the correct way. And so to me, that seems to be like, the contracts and W-9s and all that is the easy part. But then once you're getting them on board with the systems and everything, especially if they haven't used them before, to me, that's the most time consuming because it just takes, a little bit and you're communicating back and forth if you get the invite, and all of those kinds of things because you want them set up properly. And even in doing that, you can often use the video, like I talked about, where you can do the screenshot and explain how to set it up and things of that nature, especially for different systems that you might be working within for the client, because that can be a lot of different systems that your client's working with as well.
And one thing we didn't talk about is like when we're doing all this and the check marks and how to set up and give them, is also let them have a policy and procedure on what to do under certain circumstances. What happens if, you drop the ball, or what happens if you get sick? What happens, in an emergency and you can't fulfill your part? Like, what do you do? That's going to be important too, and go over.
That's huge. Yeah, that's a great point. Because many of you know I have a disability, and often, unfortunately, I get ill and work from bed some days, but some days not so much. And I have to be sure my team's on board and knows what they're doing and is able to take care of our clients, because that's the most important thing anytime I'm down, is that the clients are taken care of well, any one of us is down, and that we can jump in for each other as well. Which is a huge thing, especially if you're working on similar projects. It's not a big deal for another team member to jump in and help out when needed, especially if there's a big project or event coming up, or something like that that you really need to make sure your client's promoted properly, in my case anyway, or if there's a big project you're trying to finish up and you need some additional hands on. It's important. I think that's a big part of being a freelancer and a subcontractor is flexibility. That's a big part of our business, is being able to be flexible for our clients and, kind of move when they move and meet that need when they have it. And often it's not even planned ahead when they're solopreneurs and they're like, what do I do? And, you're there to help them, it's okay, we've got it. You do what you do best and we'll take care of the back, the other stuff. So it's huge to have a team you can really count on and talk about those things. Like, when I'm down, this is what, or when you're down, you need to let me know so I can cover, those kinds of things. A lot of times freelancers, especially if they've worked on their own for a long time, don't consider those things. And so when they're down, they don't think about telling you. They just disappear. I had a team member one time years ago. She just disappeared on me. Like, didn't tell me anything. All of a sudden, this communication stopped, the client work stopped, and it was a good thing that I knew what to expect daily for the client work. Otherwise, I would have been in the dark. But it took like a week, and suddenly she reached out again, but she had been hospitalized. She had asked her family to communicate, but they didn't. And I knew nothing, so I had to just jump in and do. And that's a really scary place to be. So you definitely want to communicate those.
But you just brought up such a good point there. If all the team members, maybe that's something you put in your procedures, that if that they should have a backup system for themselves. So if, say, something happens to them and they can't communicate to you, like this person did, that that they assign a family member that knows to contact you, and maybe that is put in procedure, and or somebody that could to let you know. I think that I just thought about that, but I think that asking them to do that would be huge.
Yeah, and that is huge. And I think those are things that you talk about as you onboard It has to be part of that onboarding. And even within the welcome packet, having some of those documents of the procedures and things that you follow, because you want them to understand it. And I even get them to sign it as well often. That they've looked at the procedures, and certain ones, like in my contract for clients, certain areas I have a signature or an initial box, and I highlight and say, because I want to make sure they've read that, because so often people just go through and sign, but I want to make sure certain areas are read. So that might be an area that you do that as well on your welcome, in your procedural manuals, or, even documents. It doesn't have to be a huge manual you send to them. That could be very overwhelming. So don't make it huge in the beginning. Just make sure it's simple and to the point for the procedures that you need with subcontractors. Right?
Looking up.
I can't. There we go.
Oh, I'm sorry. The other thing I was thinking about when I was, trying to put all this together, something that we should talk about too is not only what to do in case of emergency, but what to do if you find yourself, because I'm sure this can happen. You can get a client, they appear to be nice, you set them up, and then the client's abusive to your staff. Yeah. And what to do, how to prevent that, like bullying or harassment or, any of that nature, and the procedures of what to do for that.
That's a great
because in this sound, because it sounds like, in some ways, you say, well, we're all independent, but if you're running a business, you have to cover every scenario, and even though they're contractors and working on their own, they're part of your team members, and they, you want to protect them just as if they were employed in those ways,
Absolutely. I love that you bring that up, because I'm very protective of my team members. And yes, we need our clients, but at the same time, I won't stand for anybody being abusive to myself or team members. I learned that a long time ago. I had a client that did that. It was the hardest thing I ever did, but I let him go. And I didn't regret doing that at all. At first it hurt. It was a crunch in the budget, but it's okay, because I learned so much through it. The process of that was, just worth every penny I lost in it, and then gained so much better clients from. So, you have to protect them, and to let your team members know that they are important. It's huge, because that means so much to them, so you need to do that. It's very important. Great points.
It makes them even more loyal to you, because they know that you have their back.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. And when they know that, it's huge. And, I actually mostly work with subcontractors who want to subcontract, don't want to work directly themselves or promote themselves as for, a business, but they prefer to work with other business owners, on teams, which is awesome, because then that does have that loyalty factor is huge. And if they know that you're doing all you can to bring in clients, take care of them, pay them, when you get paid and all of those things, then, those are important parts of it. And something that we often don't talk about too, even on the onboarding, is going to be in the contract, is, how to pay team members, because, you can't just say, okay, you're going to get paid on the first. But like in my contracts, I'm sure in yours too, it says when the client pays me, then I turn around as soon as it hits the bank, you're going to get paid, because that's super important to me. That's number one, because you're doing this, you're helping us, and you're helping everybody, the client. So you're going to get paid immediately. And they need to know that, but it's not like they get paid on the 1st or the 15th or whenever it is, but it's, as soon as that comes in, which is usually very fast for most clients, but not always. Sometimes there's a short delay. And they just need to be made aware of that, depending on the client climate, because every client is different. Have you seen that as well, Nanette?
Yes, but luckily, so far I haven't had anyone who's really late. One person, but yeah, I agree. Getting that, having that, getting that in someone's mind is the best. And hopefully, they have other sources of income if they need it at a set time. But I don't like to hold it, as soon as I get it, it's going out to meet
Right.
their needs. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because they have the need just like we do, and they're counting on that also. And I know too, even when times are a little bit tight, if you've lost a client or something, to have team members that stand by you and also promote you and your company is huge, because it means so much, but also it helps us all. It's not just about my company, it's our company at that point. And we all work together toward a common goal and to meeting our clients' needs. And, that's huge. And I mean, I'm absolutely in a place where I love my clients, I love my team, and it can, I just feel like if I can multiply that, if I could have 10 more team members like the ones I have, if I could have 10 more clients like the ones I have, that kind of thing, I would just be in heaven, But I love it because we just absolutely have a great, right now, it's a great place, and the clients are great to work with. And that's, you can't ask for more in a business. Excuse me, my cold. I had to take a drink there. Um, anyway, so the other things that we might do too then is with our onboarding is, of course, after we have to invite them to, be part of the systems that we have, and then the client systems, the introductions, excuse me, as well. And then, like you said, introducing them to the company climate and having those meetings. And I was surprised at how much our meetings meant to our team members, because I thought, well, maybe this is an inconvenience for them, but I just thought it might be a nice thing to do as we talk about, what struggles each one has with the different clients and where ways we can improve and, all those things. But it was much more than that. It turned into being something really even personal. That was so important now, that we have those, because we all need that human interaction, and we can all relate because we're working on similar things and, for the same company. And it just really does make a big difference. And then the communication is more open as well, because the more they know that you are there with them, the more you know about them, then you can help them too when they're struggling even, with things. So my team members don't hesitate to talk about personal things when they need to. And I absolutely, absolutely love that they have no problem with, telling us that and, telling me that when they're struggling with something. Because, well, for one thing, I'm a woman of faith, so I'm going to be praying for them. And I know their struggle, and I want them to understand that I'm there if they need it. And not only that, but as an owner, that if you can help your employees, they're going to work better too. I don't do it for that reason, but you just know that's part of the culture. We're talking about a company. If your employee, not employees, team members are happy and your subcontractors are happy, then they're going to stay with you longer. They're going to have that loyalty, and they're going to have your back just as much as you have their back. And so that's really important part of it. Have you found that to be true also, Nanette?
It's a great way of sharing. Somebody's may be stronger at something than someone else, and so this way, you're the sharing of ideas and how to overcome obstacles, from the team is another way of bonding, and also another way of helping your other contractor out. So that numbers and everything, but when it comes to dealing with, speaking with your client, best ways, things like that, it may not be their strong point. And so somebody else can come in besides you and say, well, this is what I find works. And, this is how I handle this client. And you should try that. Somebody's having a problem doing their job. Everybody has more than one skill level in a team. So someone can bring something in and say, try this will work. Or I've used that system before and this works. Great synergy by doing that. Not only are you talking about your personal and getting to know each other on a personal level, but also professionally, that you can help each other out.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's huge, a huge part of company culture and everything else as well, is being able to be there for one another and help each other, and even teammates reaching out to each other. And Facebook is a great place. There's a workforce Facebook. A lot of people don't know about it, but you can actually have your team members on there and have just chats within the team. You know, sometimes on your project management system, your client's involved on there too, so you can't chat openly necessarily. So Facebook Workplace is a great place to go ahead and set up your company and then add your team members in so that they can chat with you or with each other or however you want to do it. For us personally, that hasn't necessarily taken off, only because we communicate on a regular basis through email often or another way. So for us, that's not a system yet that we use regularly, but I think as we grow even more, that probably will be a great system for us. And I think for many people.
Do you think, I don't know if you do this already, but do you think having like a contact sheet with everybody, the team members and their cells or something that you share, or would you?
I haven't in the past, only because each team member, try to keep their privacy, but at the same time, I don't see a reason why they couldn't share with one another, and they have each other's emails, because at times I email everybody or something like that. One thing I will say that I ran into with a client, not with a team member, but I could see that this could happen with the team member, maybe not on mine, but I know depending on the personality, it could. One of my team members was very gracious about, we had a client who would send live photos every day because it was something that was, their business was something that we had to daily post things to their Facebook page. And there were kids and parents involved in different things like that. So there was a lot of elements to it. And there were also blog pictures and just a lot of things. I mean, we're talking hundreds of pictures here by the time a week was done. And our team member that was in charge of this client was very gracious in giving her cell phone at first to the client, but didn't want other people to have it in her team, obviously. So she set up the WhatsApp for them to use and use that. And I think there was another program, I can't remember. But because what ended up happening was the client was in a different time zone. So the client would often text in the evenings when she was finished her day and was thinking about things. And then it would overwhelm my team member, because it would be a lot just coming in. And it was like she was expecting her to respond. And I had to remind the client that we work 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and anything outside of that would be answered in the morning, or she could text me directly if it was something urgent. You know what I mean? But being there to be, the buffer too for your team members is huge, because, the team member felt like she could come to me and say, hey, this is kind of overwhelming. What do I do? And I just said, don't worry, I'll take care of it. Because to me, that was most important, that she was comfortable with what she was doing and not overwhelmed. And the client shouldn't have been doing what they were doing. So, excuse me, sometimes we have to educate the client as well, which we've talked about before. And, when you onboard new clients, the same thing, about your processes and the way you do things. Mm-hmm. So, being there to protect your team member is just as important as them doing the work that needs to get done.
Absolutely. Yep.
I lost the sound. I can't hear you. You're on, I think.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Coming in and out, maybe the internet.
You know what happened? I unmuted and muted myself.
Oh, okay. It's not my hearing then.
No, it's not you.
Today, at least.
But it's funny. You're always going to have a client that's going to push the envelope. That's going to see what they can get away with, and or their needs are first and foremost, and they're not thinking about it. I mean, that's true even for when you worked when we had full-time jobs and we had bosses that were like that. That's just the nature of it. And so managing that is going to be really important, especially with your team members. Because some of the team members won't feel comfortable doing it, but getting upset, and you don't want to lose them. So communication is really good, both ways. The team member needs to be able to express themselves, and you need to be able to step in when needed.
Yeah, and I think being vulnerable yourself sometimes helps, saying that you struggle too, and things like that, and that they can come to you, just being open with them and allowing them to be themselves and not criticizing them for it, that, oh, they can't handle it or something like that, because that's not what it's about at all. They do great work. This particular team member goes above and beyond, and I knew that if she was saying that, it was out of control. So, because she just really does, I'm sure she probably took it for a number of days before she even told me. So, yeah. So, and the other thing I find too is usually with clients who haven't had virtual professional work with them before are the ones that often, because they expect one thing in their head because they're used to the in-office type mentality where they can just say, hand things off, here you go. Whereas, bless you, whereas the virtual world is totally different. And actually we were making an exception by doing the pictures daily like that, and making sure they were done by that day, because normally, in our contract, it says 24 to 48 hours ahead of time, we have to have work in order for it to be processed. So, that particular one, there was a special need, and we made sure we took care of it, though. And I loved working with her. It was just that in the beginning, it was kind of hairy there and for my team member. But once we got it all ironed out, it started to flow, and that was great. And just having the team member be able to be vulnerable with me and share that made a huge difference, because she could have just stayed upset and then eventually either exploded or just said, that's it, I can't work with this person anymore, I'm leaving, and you never want that, because then not only do you lose a great team member, but then you're in a position now to have to fill that and do the work at the same time while you're running a company and working multiple projects probably. And that gets, so you definitely want your team members to be able to come to you in anything, and be able to talk to you. So make yourself available and vulnerable, and doing those, whatever it is, weekly, monthly, however often you do this sessions with them can make a big difference.
And with that said, you still expect them to do quality work, at the same time. I think that sometimes it could take the other extreme, because they're contractors. You have to tread differently than with an employee, but you still can have set goals and expectations and milestones that you expect from them to meet, and quality is really important. So you can't.
I think
there are certain things you can't do.
Sorry, I think there's a difference too sometimes in tone between professional email and personal. Like, we definitely have that. So when there's something professional that I feel needs to be addressed, or just, hey, could you look at this kind of thing? That's totally different than, the personal. When I get a personal that says I'm struggling, that's a different tone. And, where we come together and work on that, it's different than the professional. So yeah, I agree with you. It could take, you could get somebody that's real emotional and on edge all the time, and they're always telling you, oh, this is, and you have to be very careful with that, because that in itself could be overwhelming. You can't meet all those needs.
Right. Right. I had someone tell me that they had a client of mine work with contractors on their business, and because it was real estate, it's an agent, but that's also a contractor because they're doing things on their own for the good of their company. But she was saying that the person, and these are issues I think all of us probably have to deal with. She would come in when they have their meetings, dressed inappropriately, and she wanted to, whatever stage of life she was going through, I think a divorce or whatever, she was bringing her personal into the to the broker, talking to her about it, wanting to be her friend. And she goes, you know what? We're not, when we're working, I don't want to hear about your personal life, that kind of thing. So learning of the boundaries, like you could bring someone in the culture and it's really good to be able to support on a personal level as well as a professional level, but there's still a boundary, you know what I mean? Like we're running a business here, And so let's not go overboard in talking about your struggles of finding a man or anything like that. You know what I mean? It's like you have to be careful and keep a professional tone, but show that you support and you do care about them personally as well as professionally. But I'm not Dear Abby.
Absolutely. Unless you are running like a counseling service and they're paying for it, right? I know. I really get what you're saying, though, and it's hard. Sometimes it's difficult to find that fine line. And you just have to be firm. Sometimes I can be too compassionate, but then at the same time, I've learned you have to set those boundaries and be firm and just really kind of guide. You're the head of the company. You're the owner. You have to guide your company into what you want it to be. You don't allow clients and team and anybody else to form what your company is. That can go into it, but you are the one that determines how that ship is running and where it's going, and if you're always focused on the personal also, then you're not going to make any headway at all. So, and making sure that those boundaries are kept helps the team, helps everybody, but taking the time when there is a need, to really make sure you express, how, that you're, if they want to talk, whatever, that you're here and you're available to them. And that's another huge thing about owning, a business and running a team is being available to your team, not just to your clients, because you just never know when a need or emergency or anything comes up. It happens to us a lot lately. So you need to make sure that you have emergency contacts, that you have, the availability when a team member calls, that you're available to speak. Maybe not right away, whatever, depending what's going on, but letting them know you'll be right back in touch with them, so that they don't feel lost out in this openness and not able to reach out to you when needed.
I so agree with that. My goal is, to make what team members I bring in to feel comfortable, to feel that they feel comfortable with me, and let me know, how things are going, and that they like what they're doing, that they like that client. If that's important too, that they like the job, they like what they're doing, and if not, then maybe I may give them something else and find someone else to replace it, because that's important. So being able to manage all of that and having processes in place and the policies in place of communications and expectations is going to be so crucial to be able to deal with that. So you're not overwhelmed, because the whole idea of becoming a team, having a team, a multi-VA business is so that you can go out and continually grow your business. Mm-hmm. If you're talking the minutia of all these emotions and, not communicating well, and you're
right
to put out fires, you're not going to grow.
Mm-mm. No, and that is an important piece of it too, is like, I know even before I onboard clients, one of the things that I have set up, as you know, is I have a system in place that when somebody contacts me and wants to work with our company, I'm very honored, but I may not always have an opening. So I ask them a couple of questions. I ask them to send me an email, not a resume. I want an email, list your skills. I ask them to answer 2 questions just in that initial response. What is one thing you love to do out of all the tasks and skills you can do? What is the one thing you really love to do? And what is the one thing you really hate to do? Because I want to know, I don't want to put you in with a client that does that thing that you're going to have to do, that thing that you hate to do every day. I'd rather put you in with that thing that you love to do every day, because then you're going to be more content and happy there. It may not be the first thing we get to do together, I don't know, but at least I want to get you there, eventually. And so I keep actually a table like of, possible team members and, current team members and former and all of that. And I keep like all their skills, what they can do, and all of those things, and contact information in one place, so that when needed, I can just go right there and say, okay, I can call this person and see if we can work together now, or email them, because I have that need. So that's very helpful to me, but it took years to learn that. I don't know why. I tried a number of different ways to keep, I mean, even paper files and everything, which was annoying. But I, finally figured out a great system for myself anyway, and we all have to figure those out, but it really works well for me. And then I don't have to dig through the emails and say, okay, who emailed me about this, and who said they could do this kind of thing. It makes a big difference when I need to bring on a new team member.
I like that system. That's a great system. And when I want to incorporate, because I'm getting hit now with people who are trying to set up their plans for 2019. So if I don't have these processes in place now, I'm going to be in trouble, and I know that. So because a lot of people are starting to, I'm starting all the education that I've been doing out there, marketing and everything, is starting to take effect. Not that I have people now, but people are saying, okay, at this set of time, I want to be able to bring you in. So if I want to sit around doing nothing until then, I'm going to find myself very overwhelmed and not be able to meet their needs. So
absolutely, yeah, you need to be prepared.
Right.
Interviewing now for 2019, right. And if they're still available. That's the one thing too about hiring subcontractors. You may interview them, and a couple months later they may not be available. Excuse me. So, I tend to, do an initial conversation after the email, or I'll wait until I know a need might be coming up. Like say somebody said yes, and I've talked to the client, I'm just waiting for things. Then I might have a deeper conversation and say, let's do an interview. And then from there, I can, see where the client is and see where the team member is. And hopefully it all comes together well. It doesn't always, but generally speaking, when you plan it like you're going to do, it does. And it's great. If they have room for it, it's wonderful and it works out really well. But yeah, I mean, business is all about planning and having systems and processes so that you know what you're doing and where you're going. Otherwise, you're just kind of out there doing the doggy paddle and trying to stay afloat. So, and a lot of what we do for clients is taking that off of them so that they can fly, so that they can do what they do best. And a lot of people don't understand that. They just think, oh, I've got to, pay somebody to do this, but they don't understand how much it's going to bring to them by paying somebody to do that so they don't have to.
Right. Right. And even for us, it's like we have to think that way too. And so the better we're organized, the better we can help the customer that, with the mission that we all like to tell them, that we make time, open up time for them and give them back, freedom to grow their business. So we have to be the ultimate masters of managing our time and making sure that we're on top of our projects for them as well as for our team members.
That's so true. And one, it's interesting because we talked about this in our course, I think, but one area that's really, really growing right now for virtual professionals is being a systems, and processes person, there's so many solopreneurs who have started businesses in the last, however many few years, and they're at that place of overwhelm. They need help. They don't know what to do. And they don't have a process in place at all. They just jumped in, did, and started taking off. And they, if they were down, there's no process in place for anybody, and even if they have an employee or two, they still need that process and systems in place so that when something happens, or if something happens, because inevitably in life it does, and you need to know where to go from there. You don't want the company to just cease because you had to take time off or because you were ill or whatever it is, or you had a son's wedding, who knows? But you need to be able to have things run smoothly, even without you there. That's a business. Otherwise, it's a hobby, right? Isn't that what well, it's usually if they're not making money, it's a hobby. But I would dare say, even with that, that's kind of like, right on the border of a hobby. What do you think?
No, I agree with you. It's true. And but it's amazing how many people don't really have processes in place. It's so many, and and that's a good question to even, I may even bring that up in our network. I have a networking group and ask them, because we always try to think it's topics to talk about, and just say, what's your emergency backup?
Yeah, absolutely. That's huge. And just even having the systems in place, because so many solopreneurs don't have that. And just being the person that can bring them order in the chaos is huge. And not only that, if you can do that even just on a one-time project and then update it regularly, they're going to call on you for other things too, because they know how good you work with them. And so that's a great project to do for businesses right now, because it's very much needed right now. And it's a huge area.
That's good. So we just offered a niche for somebody. So
we kind of talked all about different things today, but mostly about onboarding team members and how great a team to help us out. So I don't think we had any questions today. I was looking at the board and I don't see any. But like I said,
no, I don't either.
We're getting down to the wire here for the last few minutes. But I just want to make sure if you're watching later, because we get a lot of replays later, please do just feel free to shoot us a question in our Facebook Mastermind group, or even at info@va2va-mastermindlive.com too, and we'll be glad and happy to answer that for you anytime.
Right.
So, any last comments, Nanette?
No, I think this was pretty good talk, and it brought up, I hope, a lot of things to consider for anyone who's building their processes for the multimedia business, VA business.
Yes, well, we're multimedia too, aren't we? And also keep in mind that when you do onboard, also have systems in place for when a team member might be leaving as well. And that's an important part too, that maybe we'll talk about another day. But also make sure you have that in place as well, because that's an important piece too. I hate it when that happens, but it inevitably does. And you want to make sure you have systems in place for that as well. It's always great to welcome new team members, though.
Sure.
Thank you, everybody, for watching today. We really appreciate it. Or the replays, I can't tell you how much it means to us. It really does mean a lot. And on behalf of Nanette, Lisa, and I, we just thank you for being here and watching us. And we love to see your comments and questions. So please feel free to do so. Thanks so much. Bye, everyone.